in for the touchdown. Did he get it? Yes, sir, he did. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You're listening to the One Pridecast. Hello and welcome to the One Pridecast presented by MGM Grand Detroit. I'm Tori Petry, joined on the other line by Mike O'Hara. Mike, how's your breakfast this morning?
Just coffee this morning. I was up late watching the election results and dozed off, and so coffee for a while, maybe a little toast later. Depends on what you ever send over. It's up to you. I never know what to expect.
I guess I just sent the coffee this morning. We all need coffee, I think, after election night. So, Mike, let's dive into talking about what happened for the Lions on Sunday. Certainly a frustrating loss against the Colts. What did you take away from that game?
First of all, the Colts were better than I thought they were. I really hadn't seen them play much in person. Looked at some of their defensive stats, looked at who they played, and said, well, you should do that against those teams, especially the last couple of games they played. And then on the field at Ford Field, saw what they did to the Detroit Lions, and yeah, they are plenty good. They really dominated up front against the Lions, probably I'd say on both sides of the ball, defensively and even offensively. So it was a very, very, for a game and a situation for the Detroit Lions when they had so much to gain, both in the one-loss record of getting above 500 and then just from the, winning 3 in a row and sort of announcing yourself as a legitimate contender to some degree in the National Football Conference. None of that happened for the Lions. All of that happened for the Colts.
Yeah, it was definitely a disappointing game for the Lions. We talked last week about how we thought that the Lions and Colts were pretty evenly matched, that, this was a Colts team who some of their statistics came against teams that were struggling. And so, maybe this was a prove-it game for the Colts, and it seemed like the Colts were able to have that prove-it game and the Lions did not.
Yeah, and then from the other standpoint, we kind of gloss over, and it's natural, some of the games, in fact, the 2 games the Lions have won in a row over Jacksonville and Atlanta, although I think Atlanta really is better than a 2-win team. There's not much doubt in my mind about that, but the record is what it is, and their defense is what it is, and the Lions caught a massive break at the end of that game with Todd Gurley scoring the losing touchdown.
Yeah.
I still get a laugh at that, but when we saw it on the field, let's put it this way, if I were the Colts, I wouldn't trade rosters with the Detroit Lions based on what I saw in that game. Now, there's a lot of football to go, and the Lions have a lot of chances to still prove themselves, but 3-4 going into Sunday's game against Minnesota is, with the opportunity they had a week ago, is certainly disappointing.
Well, there were a lot of points in that game that we could point to as reasons why the game went the way that it did, but if you had to pick a few defining moments of that game, what would you say they'd be, Mike?
I'd say it's an 8-second, and when I say 8 seconds, that's clock time, of course. I think 8 seconds turned that game around and what it was set up. It's a 2014 game late in the third quarter. The Lions have the ball in Colts territory. Probably going to get at least a field goal out of it to make it 2017 and go into the last 15 minutes in anybody's game. It's a toss-up. No, it wasn't. Matthew Stafford gets sacked, kind of didn't secure the ball, loses the ball on a fumble, and the Colts recover. They turn that into, early in the fourth quarter, into a touchdown. Now it's 27-14, and still a chance. It's not out of hope, but first play after Stafford misreads the coverage, throws it straight to the safety. You'll never get a bigger gift than that one. Runs it in for a touchdown. 8 seconds on the clock. The game goes from 20-14 to 35-14 with a 2-point conversion in there, and it's game over. Now you're just playing for stats, and it even got worse in the final score. 41-21 or 42-21. I gave up. They can try to erase the score from my memory banks, but it was just an awful sequence of plays. And unfortunately, Tori, we've seen it before this year, where they kind of edge back in, and then bingo, something happens.
Yeah, and you're right. That has been the story, where they have been contending in every game that they've played, but the score definitely got away from them, and it was closer at certain points than if you just were to have gone on the Lions app and looked at what the score was and didn't watch the game. It was certainly closer at different points than the final score allowed, and the Lions really did have a strong opening to the game, which we've seen at different points as well. They opened really strong, but something that stuck out to me was it was hard for this offense to get going in the first half. And we saw them come out of the second half with a really strong drive, but it felt like the Lions were always just trying to keep up on offense and couldn't get really anything going in the first half.
And couldn't get stops defensively. And in the first half, the Colts had, I think, ran 42 plays or 44 plays, whatever it was, to 22 for the Lions. They had the ball for
22 minutes.
Yeah, 22 minutes to 7-something. It was one-sided, and the Lions couldn't get off the field there in the second quarter, giving up drive after drive. And somebody says, well, as part of it, the defense is gassed because they've been on the field the whole first half. Well,
yeah.
Maybe they got their legs back a little bit after halftime, but like I said, the Lions were able to creep back into a contention, and then just the bottom fell out, and there we are at Ford Field once again with the Detroit Lions losing another home game. They're 0-3 at home this year, and they've lost 7 straight games at Ford Field. I'm not going to go back into the for this century or anything like that at Ford Field, but it's to me, no matter what the situation is, you should be winning games at home. That should not be your weak spot on your schedule. It should be your strength, and it absolutely is not yet.
Coach was asked about that after the game, about the record at Ford Field. Why do you think that is? Is it just coincidence that some of their losses have come at Ford Field against harder teams to play, or why is that?
No, I don't think it's harder teams to play. I mean, they play the Bears twice. They play the Vikings twice. Those teams keep beating them, and they've been beating them, and Green Bay been beating them, wherever they play them. I don't get it. I really don't. I don't. I guess if you really want to look at their one-loss record the last couple of years, 6 wins. So it's not like they're winning somewhere else. Last year, 3-12-1. It's not like they're winning somewhere else and just losing at home. I just think that maybe they're not as good or as have the potential that we see in them from time to time. But I just find it hard to believe that they haven't been able to take advantage of Ford Field. It really amazes me.
Yeah, it definitely is frustrating for this team. And then obviously the home field advantage isn't quite the same this year as it has been in other years. No fans in the stands, but they did have friends and family at the game on Sunday. What did you think of that, Mike, and did that change the atmosphere at all?
Well, I don't know about the atmosphere at all, but I think we talked about this on the video we do every Sunday on DetroitLions.com and whatever other platforms. You're smarter than I am about that stuff, where it all goes. But I do think this. You can, like 500, I guess it was, friends and family members, and you can say, what's the big deal? But there is a little thing in there that I think people might not forget, and that is, look, when these are world-class athletes in the National Football League and baseball and all the pro sports and all that. And all of these guys, they didn't start out playing and running out on the tunnel with 63,000 fans screaming. They started out with their mom and their dad and their sister and their brother and an uncle and a friend and all that. Watching them play Little League baseball or football or swimming and diving or even organ recitals and things like that. And how cool it is to have somebody. You look out, there's your dad sitting in the stands. There's your mom. There's your your girlfriend or your best friend or all that. And there is a little bit to that. Lomas Brown talked about that in the pregame show on WJR. He said it was really neat, and even when he was a player, looking up in the stands, because everybody knows exactly where their I'll call it just support people are, where they're sitting. They'll kind of give them a little signal from time to time and pick them out of that crowd because they sit in the same seats every week. And I thought they'd get just a little bit of something out of that, and it turned out. I mean, if they did, then it disappeared pretty quickly, but I thought there'd be something there. Not everything. I didn't think it would mean everything. I thought it would mean something, and maybe it did. Maybe it's why they got off to a 7-0 start, and the game was close, and they were back in it late in the third quarter. But boy, the result is what it is.
Yeah, definitely a tough result. When you look at that game, are there any positives that you can take from it? I mean, obviously, a 41-21 game is a tough one, but what can you take away that maybe the Lions can build off of?
Well, I thought a couple of things. When we look at special teams, where Braden Coombs has done really a good job in really solidifying that unit. Now, there's been, I wouldn't call it chaos, but I think he's the fourth since opening day of 2018. He's the fourth special teams coordinator for, reasons. He had one last year for 1 year, then he got a firing 2 years ago, and the assistant picked up the pieces for the rest of the season. But he came over from Cincinnati. From what I understand, he was highly regarded. People spoke very highly of him as an assistant there, and he's brought that here. And I think, look, the second series of the game, the defense, kind of sags a little bit, but stops finally gets a 3-and-out, and Miles Killebrew blocks the punt. Lions recover around the 30-some yard line. 2 plays later, they get a touchdown pass to Marvin Jones Jr. I thought that showed something. I thought that that the special teams was special, and I thought that was a good one. Something not so good. Don Muhlbach had a couple of low snaps. The first one, Jack Fox, kind of fielded it on the short hop or an in-between hop. I guess if he was a third baseman, you might call it an in-between hop, and ripped a 50-something yard punt. Never lost his stride, never lost his rhythm, never panicked, and really got a pretty strong rush against him too, and found a gap in the rush and just ripped the ball. I thought that was good for special teams, and offensively, nothing really good. Marvin Jones Jr. having 2 touchdown catches, I thought was good. What a pro. No matter what happens out there, he played every snap except one. Had, I think, 5 targets. So it wasn't like they were going to him every down, but he was always ready. When the ball comes to Marvin Jones Jr., he's always ready to perform. And then for T.J. Hawkinson, he didn't have a lot of yards, but he had 6 or 7 catches. And I think he's really coming on as a good young tight end in the league. But basically, it's hard to really say that anybody played terrific there. The way they sort of got dominated on both sides of the line of scrimmage at times.
This season, there are even more ways to get into the game thanks to Lions Bingo presented by BetMGM. Lion fans can play along for free all season long for the chance to win great prizes, including the grand prize each week of a weekend stay at an MGM Resorts location. Just download the Lions mobile app and register to play Lions Bingo each and every week. Play along during the game, and once you hit bingo, you score. Courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Learn more and lock in your Lions Bingo board before kickoff by visiting the official Lions mobile app now.
Well, let's look ahead to see what the Lions have in front of them. It sounds like they might not have Kenny Golladay here for a little bit. He left that game with a hip injury. We'll see what ends up happening there, but it sounds like, this might cause him to miss some time. What do the Lions do on offense without Kenny Golladay?
Well, when you say sometime, I think it was either at his Monday presser or Sunday after the game. I forget which one right now. Here we are in the midweek, and my memory is failing already. No, but Coach Matt Patricia said that it's going to be days and weeks. And so days, okay, weeks, not so good. Galladay's been a really good player for the Lions. This is now his halfway through his 4th season here, and he's really established himself as a real pro in the National Football League. He is a professional football player, and he plays hard and he plays well, and he's really a 6'4" target with terrifically strong hands that any quarterback would love to have Kenny Golladay, unless he had something better, and there aren't many better at what he does than Kenny. To me, that's a real issue. And are they going to replace him? Yeah, they can put another body out there, and they can, but it takes away the guy who can go up and I've likened Kenny to a power forward in basketball many times, and I'll just say it again. There aren't many guys who can go up in traffic and get rebounds. Not everybody's not willing to do it. Well, he's willing, and he does it, and he's good at it. That's why he led the league in touchdown catches last year with 11, and why he's made some big plays for the Lions early in the season, despite having injury issues. He already missed 2 games, and now he's going to miss some more. Maybe Quintez Cephas, the rookie from Wisconsin, who got some playing time early. He's been inactive the last, as you'd expect, by the way, with all the guys back healthy. He's been inactive of late. He might get some playing time, but he's certainly not going to do what Kenny Golladay did. So we'll have to find a way. Unfortunately, the way the running game is just absolutely dried up. I don't think you can count on that making up the difference on the ground for any. Now from a game, you never know what's going to happen in an individual game, but I don't see that it's something the Lions can lean on as an alternative to not having one of their top pass catchers.
Yeah, why do you think the run game has dried up?
I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. I thought that after the Jacksonville game when DeAndre Swift had 116 yards, and really I really think he's a good highly skilled player, but hasn't done anything since then at all. I mean, nothing. Nothing that you can really say, wow, he's rolling, because he's not, and neither is Adrian Peterson. He's really, I don't know if he's hit the wall finally at age 35. I hope not, because I like watching him play, and everybody loves the guy. I love his interviews and all that. I don't know. I know they got dominated up front. I mean, they really did against the Colts, but I wouldn't say that was necessarily the case the week before in a game that they won. So that's a tough one for Darryl Bevell and Matt Patricia and the rest of the staff to figure out. I do think they've gotten predictable with their run calls. I mean, they had 8 first down plays in the first half on Sunday against the Colts, and they ran on 6 of them. Seems to me that the Colts can add up. They can count to 4, count to 3. They know that first down, if you keep doing it, they're probably going to do it again. And I just thought that sometimes you get lost in your play chart and you keep calling plays, and they weren't working. I just want to back up on one thing. When I'm talking about, finding fault with some play calling, I understand that calling plays after the play is, you've seen the result of a play, is the easiest thing in the world. So I'm not trying to trade places with Darryl Bevell. I really think he's been a good offensive coordinator for the Lions, and I think there's a chance that they're still going to do well. Just talking about a point in time on this one game.
Certainly something that stuck out to me as well from that game. But let's flip over to the defense and what the Lions might be getting this coming week against the Vikings. We talked about it last week, Mike, with Everson Griffen and the trade that the Lions made. We talked about the impact that might make, but he might actually be on the field this week, which certainly with Trey Flowers heading to short-term IR thrusts him into a bigger role. How important will Everson Griffen be this week if he's able to play?
Well, it depends on the level he plays, and we'll see. Practice is the middle of the week, but I think both Corey Unlin, the defensive coordinator, in his interview this week, and what Matt Patricia said already, I mean, it sounds like they're expecting him to play, and with all the protocols and all that, they haven't had a chance to work him out or anything. When they see him on the practice field in the middle of the week, it'll be the first time they really had hands on him, but they've been able to touch him. To me, defensively, I think the Lions and the Vikings to some degree have the same problem defensively, and that's giving up yards and giving up points. I mean, I go back in the day when these were just teams when they used to call this the black and blue division, and I understand it's a different game now than it was, but the Vikings were the purple people eaters, the Lions were they were the silver rush, and before that they were just one of the toughest defenses in the league. But it's a different era now, but still, I don't think either team has performed all that well. I mean, the Vikings are giving up 411 yards on average per game. The Lions are up there somehow in a high three somethings and giving up points too. So, I think the Lions have to find a way to get to the quarterback. They haven't been able to do that on a consistent basis, except for Romeo Okwara, who leads them with 5 sacks. If you don't get to the quarterback in a National Football League, and if you don't stop the run, you've got problems. And the Lions have had problems with both at times. So, you look at what the Vikings did last week, Tori, at Green Bay, by the way, where Dalvin Cook ran for 160 or 180 yards, had 2 receptions for 60-some yards, one of them a long screen pass for a touchdown. They barely used Kirk Cousins, and he still had a big game, throwing the ball 16 times or 14 times, whatever it was. So, Mike Zimmer, the head coach of the Vikings, he goes with what works, and that's what worked last week. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of it on Sunday in Minnesota.
Well, with the Vikings beating the Packers last week, I mean, that's a huge win for the Vikings. Are you buying it that the Vikings have turned things around, or do you think this is a winnable game for the Lions?
I think it's a tough game for the Lions. Playing in Minnesota, even though I think the Vikings have won 4 straight now, whatever it is. The Lions had a streak going against the Vikings there, and that's been turned around. But winnable game, yeah. But I think there's some things have happened. The Lions have injuries are hurting them now. They will not have Trey Flowers for a period of time. You talk about is he a great stats producer. Nobody's a really good football player. Makes a lot of different kinds of plays because he's good and he studies and he's prepared and all that. And, Jared Davis, who really hasn't been, I guess, this year what you would have expected of him when he was drafted in the first round 3 years ago. This is his fourth year, and he's now split in time as a linebacker, but might not be available this week. We're not sure about that, but it's up against them. It really is. And winnable game. Yeah, it's a game they can win. I don't think it's an unwinnable game. I think there's some of those games for any team. He's got a 3-4 record, goes into a game during the season. Goes, boy, I don't know if we can win this one. Well, they don't say that, but I would. I don't know if they can win this one. I don't think that's in that category at all.
Okay, well then let's take it to Mike's Pick of the Week, presented by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. Mike, who are you picking on Sunday?
Well, Tori, I do it, is it black chips? Is it green chips? The blacks are $100, the greens are $25, the reds are $5, the whites are $1. I'm going to have to take the Vikings in this one, with the red chips. So I wouldn't want to bet a lot on this one way or the other.
Okay.
I just think the Vikings. I picked them to win the division at the start of the season. They're not going to do that now, I don't think. Although they put a dent in the Packers, and the Bears lost last week as well. I just think the Vikings may have hit on something, the way to play with Dalvin Cook back. Lions have had trouble stopping the run. This will free them up for some play action with Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen and Jefferson, the rookie wide receiver. I'm going to take the Vikings 27-17.
Well, with just the red chips. I like how you lay it out for us
to
give us the confidence level in the pick.
And a man of my stature standing there at the cage with those $5 chips is embarrassing. Next thing you know, it'll be the penny slots.
Oh, my goodness.
Woe is me.
Listen, we still respect Mike's Pick of the Week. That's an important part of this podcast. So we appreciate you weighing in on it every week, Mike. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll chat with you next week.
This season, there are even more ways to get into the game thanks to Lions Bingo, presented by BetMGM. Lion fans can play along for free all season long for the chance to win great prizes, including the grand prize each week of a weekend stay at an MGM Resorts location. Just download the Lions mobile app and register to play Lions Bingo each and every week. Play along during the game, and once you hit bingo, you score. Courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Learn more and lock in your Lions Bingo board before kickoff by visiting the official Lions mobile app now.